All right, let's just jump right in. We hear the term AI bias all the time, right? We think of it as these glitches, these little bugs that make the AI mess up. But what if that's completely the wrong way to look at it? What if this bias isn't a bug at all, but actually a feature? So check this out. A researcher asks an AI to finish a simple sentence. The little girl played with her, and what does it say? Well, overwhelmingly, it predicts the next word is dolls. I mean, it's just making a prediction based on the mountains of text it was trained on.
And our first reaction, probably your first reaction too, is to say, aha, that's bias, right? A clear-cut case of gender bias, a technical flaw that the engineers need to go in and fix. But what if it's not a flaw?
Well, there's this growing group of researchers, people coming from anthropology and social sciences, who are saying exactly that. They're arguing that this isn't a bug in the code, it's a feature of its culture. Yeah, you heard that right. The AI's culture is showing. So the big idea here is that the problem isn't that AI is biased. The problem is that AI is cultural. The models aren't broken, they're just a mirror, reflecting the cultural patterns and assumptions that are baked into their training data. And let's be real, that data is overwhelmingly from one corner of the world, the English-speaking, Western-focused internet. And what you get is a kind of digital ethnocentrism. It's like one culture's way of seeing the world becomes the default setting for everyone. Its values and its norms become this invisible yardstick that every other culture gets measured against, whether it fits or not. The alternative way of thinking about this comes from anthropology, and it's called cultural relativism. And it basically says, hold on a second, you have to understand things within their own context. So a piece of technology, just like a social custom, needs to be designed for local needs and local ways of thinking, not some one-size-fits-all universal standard. The Indian architect Charles Correa had this amazing analogy for it. He said it's like trying to build European architecture in a tropical climate. It just doesn't work. You can't just copy-paste something designed for one place and drop it into another and expect it to function, let alone be helpful. The design has to fit the environment, and it's the same with AI. Okay, so this is more than just an academic debate. What are the real-world consequences of this massive cultural blind spot? Well, many thinkers, especially from the global south, are calling it a new kind of data colonialism. And they say it comes with some pretty serious hidden costs. They've laid out 4 big threats that come from this north-centric AI model. They call them the 4 E's. The first E is extractivism, and it's exactly what it sounds like. We're talking about the extraction of valuable stuff from the global south to fuel AI development in the global north. And it's not just data. It's also the rare earth minerals needed for the chips, and it's the low-paid human labor that sits there labeling all that data. The resources flow one way, the profits flow the other. It's an old story, just with a new digital twist. The second E is exclusion. Think about it. AI automation starts to kill off jobs that were once outsourced. But it's also more literal. You have facial recognition systems trained on mostly white faces that just don't see people with darker skin. They literally exclude them with sometimes dangerous consequences. Third is that ethnocentrism we were just talking about. This is where the AI itself imposes one cultural lens on the whole world. It treats one perspective as the default, the right one. And in doing so, it sidelines countless other languages, values, and ways of seeing the world. And the last E is enforcement, or maybe the total lack of enforcement. You see all these ethical AI guidelines from big tech companies, right? But critics say they're often just toothless. They're vague, they're non-binding, and they end up being more of a PR move than anything else, while the real problems go unaddressed. So you put these 4 E's together: extractivism, exclusion, ethnocentrism, and enforcement. And you can see how they create and reinforce this huge global imbalance. But the good news is, for each of these problems, there are potential solutions. You know, things like fair global governance, or deliberately making space for different worldviews. Which, of course, leads to the big question, who is going to build that? Because here's the thing, this isn't the only way it has to be. The current model isn't the only game in town. All around the world, totally different, competing visions for what AI could and should be are starting to take shape. So in the West, what we have is this LLM monoculture, mostly driven by big private companies. The philosophy is basically bigger is better.
Just scale up the large language models, and eventually they'll figure out how to reason. But then you look at China. They're taking a completely different, state-driven path. They're exploring multiple avenues at once: brain-inspired AI, robotics, embodied intelligence. And they're openly critical of LLMs, saying they lack any real understanding.
And then there's a third way emerging, with India really taking the lead. They're pushing this AI for all idea. Instead of just building giant, general-purpose models, they're focused on creating open, accessible, public infrastructure, what they call DPI. The whole point is to use AI to solve specific, on-the-ground development problems, all while protecting data sovereignty. It's a model they're building for themselves, but also offering as a blueprint for the rest of the global south.
Okay, so let's bring this back to you. Every time you use a chatbot, you're interacting with what we can call the visible network. It's the stuff you see, right? It's you, it's the AI interface, maybe it's the company you work for. It's all right there on the surface.
But underneath that, there's a hidden network that's also at play. And this is the one you don't see. It's that invisible hand of the AI's culture we've been talking about. The baked-in assumptions, the values of the developers, the biases in the training data, it's all there, quietly shaping the conversation, nudging your responses in ways you probably don't even notice.
And this is where we get to what's really at stake here. Because this isn't just another tech race. It's not just about who has the biggest economy or the strongest military. This is a battle for something much, much deeper.
A top AI scientist in China, Zhu Songchun, put it this way: the reason we trust each other is because we share common values. And he argues that for an AI to be truly intelligent and, more importantly, trustworthy, it can't just be driven by data. It has to be driven by values.
And that's the real heart of it. The global race for AI supremacy isn't really about who can build the cleverest algorithm. It's a race to embed a specific worldview, a specific set of cultural values, into the operating system of, well, everything.
Which leaves us with a pretty massive question to chew on. As AI increasingly becomes the language we all speak, the way we interact with information, with our institutions, with each other, who gets to write the dictionary? The thing to take away is that the answer to that question is going to define our future, and we all have a stake in the answer.